Most definitely. Do you think that Charles will be able to move on from this and not allow his tenure as king, his reign, to be tainted by this scandal?
Oh, I mean, there's so much that King Charles has had to dodge over the last few years. Racism allegations, Harry and Meghan lobbing those from the United States.
January 2026, the royal family is emerging from what insiders are calling the most chaotic year in decades, and just when the palace seemed to be catching its breath, another shockwave hits. A revelation so intense, so potentially explosive, is rippling through the corridors of Buckingham and Windsor that some say it could shake the monarchy to its very foundation. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the former royal stripped of his titles, privileges, and public favour, is suddenly being linked to Meghan Markle in ways the world was never meant to hear. Out in public, whispers are intensifying. People are speculating that Meghan and Andrew may have crossed paths in high-profile social spaces long before Harry even entered the story. These weren't just casual encounters. We're talking elite environments where power, influence, and networking collided in a way only a few could navigate. Insiders claim the palace went to great lengths to keep these connections quiet over the years, but as the walls crack, the secrets are starting to peek out. What makes this situation even more unsettling is the way King Charles and Princess Catherine are reportedly reacting behind closed doors. Sources suggest their behaviour hints at knowledge far deeper than they're publicly admitting. The palace atmosphere is tense, and if even part of these rumours is true, and Andrew really did know Meghan before her relationship with Harry through overlapping social circles, then a cascade of uncomfortable questions is inevitably coming. Some insiders believe Harry may have had no idea how extensive these past connections were. What you're about to hear challenges the official timeline, forcing a second, far more critical look at everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle and the inner workings of the royal family. Here's where the story turns heavy.
Something strange here that's starting to become a pattern, and you can see it here in this video. Right after he says, "I found the love of my life," there is a weird pause of discomfort. You do not have to be a profiler or anything to see this. You'll feel it.
I'd now found the love of my life.
Andrew didn't merely fall from grace, he was obliterated. In October 2025, King Charles officially stripped him of his remaining titles and ordered him out of Royal Lodge. Overnight, he went from Royal Highness, Prince Andrew, Duke of York, to simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Every royal benefit, every privilege vanished in a single sweeping move. When someone loses that much attention and status, palace insiders say the shifts are immediate and volatile. Sources claim Andrew allegedly possessed detailed knowledge about Meghan, years before she ever met Harry. Not vague rumours, but concrete information about the professional and social spheres she inhabited, the elite figures she interacted with, and the subtle currents of influence in those circles. This revelation has driven palace insiders to frustration and speculation. Consider this shocking detail. Back in October 2016, the news of Harry and Meghan's relationship leaked to the press. It was no random accident. Author Tina Brown confirmed that a staffer connected to the House of York tipped off the tabloids. The question remains, why would Andrew's household release that story so early? What motivation existed to expose the relationship before it even took hold? Many insiders believe it wasn't mere coincidence. It may have been a deliberate warning shot. Andrew could have been aware of shared elite connections that made him want the relationship publicised early. Now examine the timeline closely. Meghan was attending high-end networking events and operating within exclusive professional environments years before meeting Harry. At the same time, Andrew was known to frequent many of these same social spaces, leveraging his public role and connections. The overlap alone raises eyebrows among royal historians, even without jumping to speculative conclusions. Another detail that never sat right with biographers: Harry once claimed Meghan mistook Prince Andrew for a staff member during her first introduction to the family. But here's the twist. Meghan was already close friends with Princess Eugenie before meeting Harry, and that friendship is well documented. Eugenie is Andrew's daughter. Critics are still asking the pointed question: how does someone know the daughter intimately but fail to recognise the father? That inconsistency has fueled years of discussion and debate among royal commentators. It simply doesn't add up unless something else was happening behind the scenes. If Meghan had openly acknowledged knowing Andrew, it could have sparked uncomfortable follow-up questions. How did they meet? Where did their circles intersect? What was the nature of their prior interactions? Questions she likely didn't want anywhere near her public story. Acting confused, insiders say, may have been her safest move, a way to sidestep scrutiny while maintaining composure. Treating Andrew as just another face in the room didn't go unnoticed. Palace staff reportedly picked up on the awkwardness immediately. Sources tied to Andrew claim his household was irked by the servant remark, and that tension never quietly dissipated. Some royal watchers believe that moment had lasting consequences. It might explain why Andrew's camp allegedly let news of Harry and Meghan's relationship slip to the press soon afterward. Timing like that rarely happens by accident.
Brian or others, that they will really spill the beans. And therefore, best to keep them close, both of them. And that's, they walk this tightrope. There's speculation, there's been leaks to the press that, there's been a summit at Balmoral and they're talking as a result of my book about what they can do. That's all window dressing. Nothing will happen. Nothing will change.
Now, rewind to what insiders call Meghan's mystery years, the time before Suits, before global fame, when her movements were less documented. Those years are still under debate, particularly her attendance at high-end networking events and luxury social gatherings. Online, old photos circulated of women on yachts and at exclusive gatherings where Prince Andrew was also present. Meghan's name eventually became loosely associated with these events. The palace's response was immediate and firm. Fact-checking outlets moved quickly, stating the women in the photos were not Meghan. Images dating back to around 2010 were heavily scrutinized, and a clear message emerged almost overnight. But here's the part that caught everyone's attention. The discussion shut down abruptly. The palace never issued a direct statement, yet media outlets moved in coordinated fashion to squash the conversation. Critics continue to ask, why the rush to silence speculation? Why not let the chatter die down naturally? Some insiders argue the concern wasn't the photos themselves, it was the potential for people to dig into shared elite circles. Curiosity sparks connections, and once dots begin to link, more information inevitably surfaces, whether the palace likes it or not. Author Kirby Summers has documented Meghan's presence at luxury social events involving wealthy, high-profile figures.
I'm not going to go down to this point. I'm going to answer your questions, but that's done. It's finished. I've answered it. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question.
This is just the starting point of this year in your life that you've written about.
Thank you very much.
It's pivotal. It's what started the whole thing.
Thank you.
You do write, though, that this tabloid scandal, in fact, you almost feel thankful for it. It let you, review your life, see where you were.
Separate reporting shows Andrew attending similar elite gatherings. These circles were small, tight-knit, and heavily interconnected. That overlap has fueled years of speculation. Did Meghan and Andrew ever cross paths? Did they know the same people? Were there shared connections quietly existing before Harry entered the picture? These are precisely the questions the palace prefers left unanswered. Insiders claim considerable effort was made to curb curiosity. Even King Charles, despite stripping Andrew of titles and roles, has reportedly softened privately. Sources suggest Charles still communicates with Andrew, allows limited staff access, and maintains a less aggressive tone behind the scenes. That is notable because Charles has a well-earned reputation for protecting the monarchy at all costs. Publicly letting Andrew fall was easy, but privately showing caution? That raises eyebrows. Some insiders insist Charles is managing risk, not showing familial favour. Concerns reportedly revolve around what Andrew knows, not just about past controversies, but also about sensitive details regarding Meghan and her connections, and crucially, who knew what and when.
I hope people spit in your face when they see you walking down the street. I hope, they throw human feces at you because of how you really are as a person inside.
Here's the next layer that adds even more heat. Charles is said to have compared Meghan to Sarah Ferguson, an outsider initially adored by media, only to find herself surrounded by persistent controversy. Critics now ask, was it mere pattern recognition, or did Charles know far more than he ever publicly admitted? Did he foresee issues before Meghan formally joined the family? Royal biographer Nigel Cawthorne claims Charles anticipated serious trouble long before Meghan's arrival. Having lived through the public fallout with Andrew, Ferguson, and Diana, Charles is well aware of how private issues can spiral into worldwide scandals under media scrutiny. Princess Catherine's reaction is equally telling. She has remained silent on all Sussex matters for years, no public comment, no engagement, no reaction whatsoever. Yet, sources close to her reveal she is privately uneasy about Andrew, not just due to Epstein-related matters, but because of Meghan's potential connections to elite circles. Catherine reportedly believes Harry deserves the full picture. That belief grew stronger in December 2025 when newly released Epstein-related files surfaced. Hidden within were references to Harry and Meghan, not as accused parties, but as highly valuable names in media discussions. One email from March 2020 reportedly discussed an article where Harry commented on Andrew's Epstein connections. That single story generated an astonishing $4 million in publicity value, tying the Sussex name to Andrew's scandal. The documents made one thing undeniably clear. Andrew's downfall and the Sussex drama were intertwined in media coverage far more than anyone publicly admitted. And here's what truly stopped people in their tracks. In 2021, Virginia Giuffre's lawyer publicly stated he wanted to depose Meghan, not because she was accused of wrongdoing, but because she might possess knowledge of Andrew's activities and associations. Let that sink in. A legal professional representing victims once believed Meghan Markle might hold key insight into Prince Andrew's social world. That belief makes sense only if Meghan had been present in or around the same elite environments where Andrew moved. The deposition never happened. Did the case quietly settle? Possibly, but that statement remains on the record, and just that alone keeps endless questions alive. Think about it. Why would a lawyer even consider Meghan a potential source unless there was reason to believe she had first-hand awareness of Andrew's social and professional circles? Here's the brutal reality. Even if Meghan and Andrew had crossed paths socially before Harry entered the picture, even if they knew some of the same wealthy and influential people, the palace can never publicly acknowledge it. To admit it would be to admit Meghan's background wasn't fully examined, that her elite social connections weren't completely mapped out. It would also implicitly confirm that the Sussex situation was far more complicated than anyone publicly claimed. Harry walked away from royal life, fractured his relationship with William, strained ties with Charles, and he may never have known the full scope of his wife's social past. That's why the palace stays silent. They respond to photos when forced, but they've never addressed the larger question. Did Meghan and Andrew move in overlapping elite circles before Harry? That silence isn't accidental, it's deliberate. Answering the question would open the floodgates, unleashing even more questions. And that brings us back to October 2016. Harry and Meghan had been dating privately for just 4 months. He wanted space, privacy, a little time to breathe before the world knew. Then, suddenly, a servant from Andrew's household leaked the story to the Sunday Express. The headline was explosive: Harry secretly dating American actress Meghan Markle. But oddly, the coverage wasn't hostile. It was glowing. Journalists praised Meghan's humanitarian work and framed the relationship like a modern royal fairy tale. The tone was flattering, carefully curated, almost intentional. It wasn't some random rumor dropped for clicks. It felt strategic, as if someone wanted the romance out in the open, but in a positive light. Here's the kicker. The leak didn't come from Harry's side. It came from Andrew's household. That raises the obvious question. Why would Andrew's staff care about Harry's private love life? Why rush to reveal a relationship that was meant to stay under the radar? There are a few possible explanations. 1. Someone in Andrew's orbit wanted early control of the narrative. 2. His household may have already known details about Meghan through elite social connections. Or 3, the leak served a strategic purpose that still hasn't been fully explained. Tina Brown later suggested the positive framing may have been intentional and useful, but the detail that truly sticks out is the source: Andrew's household. That connection has never been fully addressed and continues to raise eyebrows among insiders and royal commentators alike. Now imagine this from Harry's perspective. He genuinely believed he met Meghan through Eugenie in a casual, almost accidental introduction. He thought the resistance from his family stemmed from jealousy and prejudice. He had no idea about internal palace concerns, private background discussions, or quiet investigations. He didn't know his uncle's household leaked the relationship. He didn't know about overlapping elite social circles. He didn't know that lawyers had once thought Meghan might have insight into Andrew's activities. All of that stayed out of his view. Everyone around Harry, Palace security, advisors, even close friends, chose protection over transparency. No one wanted to complicate his happiness, so Harry moved forward blissfully unaware of the bigger picture. Meanwhile, others had the information. That's why William kept his distance. That's why Charles remained cautious. That's why Catherine maintained strict formal boundaries. They were operating with knowledge that Harry simply didn't have. Sources say Charles and Catherine held private meetings in late December 2025, focusing on Andrew, not just his past controversies, but what he knew about shared elite social networks. That knowledge is what keeps them most concerned. Charles is reportedly weighing strategies to contain Andrew, limited access, controlled privileges, anything that minimizes the risk of him speaking freely about sensitive royal matters. It's not kindness, it's containment. Catherine, on the other hand, is said to favor an even firmer approach. No access, no favors, no space for Andrew to maneuver. She believes accommodating him only creates future problems. Her focus is protection, not sympathy. William is caught in the middle. He understands his father's caution, but agrees with Catherine that doors must remain closed before any damage spreads. The stakes are huge. If Andrew ever spoke openly about elite social connections involving Meghan, it wouldn't just touch the Sussex story. It could rock the credibility of the entire monarchy. Vetting processes, background checks, oversight, all could come under intense scrutiny. That's why Charles wants careful management. Catherine wants firm boundaries, and William quietly prepares for potential revelations. Andrew holds knowledge that could disrupt the entire royal narrative. So far, Meghan has made no public comment about Andrew losing his title. Inside the palace, that silence is being closely observed. She hasn't addressed the Epstein files. She hasn't addressed Andrew, not even indirectly. That silence is noticeable, especially because she often speaks out on major issues and emphasizes transparency. But in Andrew's case, she says nothing. Sources insist this silence isn't accidental. It's strategic. Meghan reportedly understands the scope of overlapping elite circles. She knows what background checks were done, what questions were asked privately, and she fully grasps that if Andrew ever speaks freely, complicated issues could resurface fast. People close to the situation say she is deeply concerned. Behind the scenes, there's constant worry about what Andrew might reveal, particularly regarding high-level social networks and who knew what and when. The timeline matters. Even minor details could trigger renewed scrutiny, reopening debates Meghan cannot control. She has no leverage over Andrew. He has already lost everything. Titles, status, privileges. You cannot pressure someone with nothing left to lose. That reality makes the situation unpredictable. Available evidence suggests that even before her Hollywood career, Meghan moved in elite social environments, attending exclusive events and connecting with wealthy and influential figures, a common path in those circles. At the same time, Andrew was entrenched in similar high-end networks. These worlds overlapped repeatedly, with familiar names, faces, and events appearing in both spheres. It's highly likely Meghan and Andrew crossed paths multiple times over several years, even if they weren't close. Mutual connections would naturally exist in those settings. When Meghan later sought deeper access to royal networks, her friendship with Eugenie played a pivotal role in introducing her to Harry. From there, the relationship grew quickly, but behind the scenes, Andrew's household leaked the romance for reasons still not fully explained. Then came the moment that raised internal alarms. Meghan publicly not recognizing Andrew triggered awkward questions about how well she actually knew his daughter. That didn't go unnoticed inside the palace and reportedly led to deeper concern about overlapping elite social networks. At that stage, halting the wedding would have required explanations the palace wasn't ready to give. Instead, they moved forward while quietly managing the complications behind closed doors. Now, Andrew has lost everything, but the knowledge about shared networks hasn't vanished. In fact, it's becoming increasingly relevant. Internal discussions confirm these elite circles were far more complex than the public ever realized. Charles and Catherine are reportedly working tirelessly to manage the situation, but controlling information is impossible. When multiple people hold pieces of the same history, leaks and questions are inevitable. So the real question isn't whether Meghan and Andrew moved in connected elite circles before Harry. That's becoming increasingly clear. The real question is, When will the full scope of those connections be revealed to the public? Andrew holds critical details. The palace investigated thoroughly, and Meghan's continued silence on Andrew is deliberate, strategic, a way to avoid reopening complicated questions about elite social networking history. If you've made it this far and want to weigh in, drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this breakdown changed your perspective, hit that subscribe button to stay locked in for more deep dives like this. Don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who needs to see it. Trust me, this story is far from over.